Web3?
So I think presenting them with the least amount of friction is going to be where all the success really is. And I think looking at explaining to brands it's full circle that Web3 can't live without Web2 and vice versa. I think also that ushering them in such a way that they realize the phygital and the event and the experience that they get in Web2, say IRL, like we're here at a conference, right, is as important as bringing them into Web3 in a comfortable way, taking their brand there and showing them other ways they can delight their customers, right? Create fandom, create loyalty, and then bring them back into Web2. I actually think it's very circular. I think it needs to be, Jody Bridge from NFT NYC at the keynote talked about twinning, and I think it's really important to have that phygital and that digital, and probably will be the most comfortable for brands in the end.
But it's so different, right? Like, I don't know who wants to take this question, but when you think about the differences between Web 2 and Web 3, I mean, yes, you have to go circular, but I think it's very difficult for the consumer, particularly if you're new to Web 3, right? Like, doesn't it take, I think it takes to some degree almost like a reprogramming of your brain, of like how things work on chain, and this whole, every notion of how you interact is different. Don't you think for a consumer, that it's confusing, and how do you get around that?
Well, what I would say is that, again, it's the least amount of friction. I think any NFT that somebody buys, companies have to make it available to them on blockchain using cryptocurrency, but they also have to make it available to them by going through their email address and using their credit card. 98% of the world is not engaged in this, and brands are worried about what their place is, and they don't want to accept crypto. So I think it has to be a blend, and that's why I'm saying like Web 2 and Web 3 have to play nice in the sandbox. I think that's where they're going to be the most successful.
And Dominic, do you see that as well? Because you're interacting in both these spaces almost simultaneously.
Yeah, well, I'm talking to many, especially European brands, and I'm talking about huge brands in Europe. They all want to come into the NFT market, and they all want to use NFTs, especially because NFTs are kind of the first real use case for blockchain.
That is a smart thing, especially for brands. But I think at the same time, they have to make sure that they can deliver on that, because nothing is going to piss off your customer more than if you promise them something in your roadmap and then it doesn't come to fruition. So I think sometimes dialing back and saying less about what's coming down the pike and then surprising, I think it's better to over-deliver than to really aggravate people. And I think the flip side of that is the one-of-one artist, which is the complete opposite, that is creating art for art's sake. And I think there needs to be that divide where maybe they don't have to provide utility of any sort, that the art is for the intrinsic value of somebody buying it, and maybe they get to put that up on their wall. And Jason, I'd like to ask you about that, because I think you experienced that when you launched your brother's artwork, and that's, you're starting as a one-of-one artist. Could you share with us what that experience was like?